So it's again a very interesting feeling to be sitting next to DaeBong Zen Master. And I was thinking, now that I'm getting older, I'm probably one of the oldest people here in terms of age. I've noticed that very often I think about security, safety, retirement, things to be safe and nice and smooth as the death approaches. And then little things like a little pain, not a major pain, or some kind of little sickness, getting cold, or back pain, throws me off totally. And big fear comes and overwhelms. Wow, getting old, sick, is it enough money saved, or I should work? Things like that. And then somehow a couple of weeks ago I was reading about the last days of Buddha. You know, he died when he was 80 years old, teaching for 40 years. And then, of course, like everything and everyone, he became old. But then in this last couple of months of his life are very interesting in that sense. We all very often maybe think about Buddha, what we read, what we heard. I mean, not much is really scientifically proven. We have these few things that remain, like text and oral tradition. But it's interesting to kind of what that says about these last days. That basically he had a very good friend, king of Kosala, and the name of that king was Pasenadi, and he came to visit Buddha when they were both already 80 years old, sitting probably talking God knows about what. But then while he was visiting Buddha, the son of this king, the prince Vidudaba, basically expels him from the office, so to speak, and the prince takes over the power, and this old king, similar age to Buddha, basically becomes stateless, and he dies so-called disgraceful death out of his kingdom. Then this same prince Vidudaba, the son of this Buddha's friend, decides to attack Shakya, the Buddha's own clan, and he kills everybody and massacres them. But then another friend, a very good benefactor of Buddha, he was King Bimbisara of Magadha, neighboring state, where Buddha was spending a lot of time. His son throws him into prison and starves him to death.
Oh my God.
And they're all similar age, 80 years old. But then that's not the end. Buddha's brother-in-law, Devadatta, accuses Buddha of not being like good organizer of Sangha and wants to throw him out, and basically create some kind of division in Sangha. Eventually Buddha had to react, so Devadatta didn't succeed, and then according to some sources he committed suicide, or some other sources he died, became ill and died, got very frustrated. So this old age of Buddha, after 40 years of teaching loving kindness, compassion, wisdom, he's surrounded by what? By total disaster of his good friends, of the wars in this region. So even things become more interesting. He he usually spent time in a place called Rajagira. It's a little town. I was lucky enough to visit that town. But then he leaves with his disciples, students, and they eventually stop. He was like visiting some 14 locations in that northern India. And eventually they stop in Vesali, a town where he says to his students, now you go seek a place where you're going to spend the rainy season nice and comfortable. Ananda and I will go a little bit further. So they went to a place that's totally isolated, some province of Kusala. Today it's called Kushinagar. Forests, poor area, nobody there really that knows Buddha very well, no rich benefactors, people who used to give him these beautiful places where he can relax. They live in cities like Kosamba, Benares, Sapati, but Buddha isn't going there. Only with Ananda he goes to this Kushinagar. And while on the way to Kushinagar, they reach a village that's called Beluva. And in that village, Beluva, he hears that two of his biggest disciples, Shariputra, who we mention very often, and Mahamoggallana, who we also mention very often, had been killed by a band of robbers in city Nalanda, where he actually taught. And they were not just killed. Every single bone of Mahamoggallana's body was broken because they killed him with sticks. These robbers. So Ananda, of course, is devastated. Pali Canon records. Buddha is kind of calm. One friend dies in prison, another starves to death, another broken every single bone, division in Sangha. Is that a security after 40 years of teaching and being enlightened? And 80 years of old? It's an interesting situation. Anyway, finally, of course, he had attacks of, most likely, I don't know how you pronounce it well, dysentery. But then he overcame until finally he was fed in Champa, another small little village, some dish that eventually poisoned him and so on and so forth. We know that. But the interesting thing is, Ananda in one moment understands that in this forest, among these desolate trees, the teacher will actually die. And there is nothing there. No kind of comfort that he can be given. Nothing, not any kind of medicine that these rich benefactors can provide. Painkillers or some kind of thing. Nothing. Ananda and Buddha in the forest. And then Buddha finally asks Ananda to sort of spread a little piece of clothing between some trees because he needs to lie down. And then he finally understands, Ananda understands that Buddha is just about to die. And of course freaks out. And then the teaching comes. What is the teaching that comes from Buddha's mouth in that moment? It's very interesting when you think about it. He says to him, among other things, be light unto yourself. Hey, be light unto yourself. That's the teaching. No rich benefactors, no painkillers needed. Good friends dying, everything destroyed. Be cool, be light unto yourself. That's the teaching that we get. So I'm thinking about these things of myself, like, hey, old age, will I have enough money for the retirement? And then I come on Sunday and practice here. So really, what do we practice? Do we need, I don't know you, but I'm asking myself, am I looking for a flashlight, or am I looking for the light that I can be for myself? That's an interesting situation when you're getting old. So I thought of sharing that with you a little. Thank you very much.
How old are you?
A little older than you.
Older?
I think
Now,
so.
how do you know that how I am old?
I don't know how old you are, but I'm thinking a little older maybe than you, because you look younger.
That means nothing. I feel like old.
Okay.
I'm 65.
Oh, very good. I just turned 60.
Yeah, so just time to die. Good time to die.
Exactly.
And you said, Buddha said, be light to yourself.
Be light unto yourself.
Light.
I don't
Light.
understand exactly also. Can I have some kind of translation? Be light on yourself.
Unto yourself. Be your own light.
Ah, okay.
The light is in you, just be.
English is very complicated.
That's right. Well, I'll tell you in a different language which is less complicated. Apa dipo bhava.
That makes it all clear.
Apa dipo bhava.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, bala.
Yeah, you understand.
That's what it is.
Now we are talking. You rely on yourself.
That's right. Be your own refuge. Because what else can be the refuge? See, that's another thing. These noble truths, like, I don't know if you ever thought about it. Why the word noble? What's the noble thing about the truth? How can the truth be noble? It's in Sanskrit, there is this word Arya, which is of course then translated into English as noble. But what's Arya about truth? Truth is either truth or not. Why would they add the word Arya? What was the feeling? I was thinking about that. And the thing is, it's a task actually. It's not just the truth. It's the task. You have to do something about it. It's not just like reading. So what do you have to do about it? Most likely, what's the first noble truth? To see the suffering, right? First of all, to see it, to recognize it. What's the second one? To abandon, actually, to do something, to abandon the cause of suffering. What's the third one? What are you going to do with the third one? To realize cessation of suffering. And what's the fourth one? You gotta sort of develop every single day this eightfold path that we talk about. So in my case, I shouldn't worry about retirement, right? I should recognize the suffering of these people without money, with money, of everything. So abandoning the cause of suffering, desire to be safe and sound. So in that sense, it's an interesting thing when it's time to die. Because it's all there. You just gotta do something. So that's how I see be light to yourself. Be your refuge. Do something about it. I don't know.
Sounds good.
Maybe.
Good talk, interesting talk.
Thank you.
Maybe if you're younger, it doesn't hit. But it's true, when you get older, you experience
Exactly.
that your body's older, and it's you have a different sensibility about things. But it's just like when we're with high school kids, you can't tell them, oh, cut your desire. I mean, they just look at you like that's ridiculous. You know?
That's right.
First, it's not even possible when you're a teenager, and second, it's a ridiculous idea. They don't even know what their desires are yet.
That's right.
They just feel something.
That's right. That's right.
So all teaching is dependent on, the situation and who is in front. But it's kind of
a lot of
cool.
young teenagers here.
Yeah, everybody here's a teenager. My uncle's 92 now, and he can't drive anymore, and I called him recently, and his old girlfriend just died. And I said, oh, you must feel bad. And he said, no, she was sick, you know, I'm sure it's much better for her now. And then he said, but I have a new girlfriend, and she has a car. And I thought, oh my God, it's like your 17-year-old life, you know? He doesn't want to sit in this old people's residence, which isn't bad, that he lives in. He wants to be able to get out, so his girlfriend has a car.
That's
you know? It's probably when you were a teenager, it was like, my boyfriend or my girlfriend has a car. So not a whole lot changes, just your body's older, and maybe you learned something and maybe you didn't.
That's right.
So what means the mind didn't change?
Unfortunately. But it did strike me when you were talking, oh, that's interesting. Buddha went into a kind of not so populated area.
But the dogs do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Most animals
They
will
can't.
go someplace away from everything else when they die. It's easier to die. But also it's a good message to us, you know, because my experience is when you want comfort, you are putting yourself in a dangerous situation. And you may get it, but it's, you will lose it. You're going to lose it no matter what. And it's very rare people who can die under comfortable circumstances, you know, without too much suffering themselves. It's very rare. Does anybody have any questions? Any kind of question?
So why the 40% of the Buddha teaching was about cause and effect and death?
Yeah.
Why is there so much attention to this one? You're talking to alive people.
When recently I was reading some of the Buddhist stuff, and it's interesting, I didn't really think of it this way, but his biggest concern when he left the practice was dealing with the suffering people have. He also of birth, old age, sickness, and death. And it was overcoming those four main things that was his main concern. That he realized being king didn't touch those things. You know, yeah, you can be born in more comfortable circumstances. You know, everybody's happy when a baby's born, except the baby. You almost never hear of a baby coming out. They usually come out and they start screaming. So maybe they know something we don't. So that's suffering. After I saw a child born once, one of our friends let us come and watch her give birth. And after that, on my birthday, I'd always call my mom and just say, thank you. You know, it's not that this woman was suffering greatly. She was quite focused on what she was doing, and she had techniques, breathing and stuff. She knew what she was doing, even though it was her first baby. But it was like, wow, this is an amazing thing that happens. And whoa. And for the baby and for the mom, you know, it's a huge thing. And getting old, anybody knows, even rich people get old, their body won't do what they want to do. They get more affected by the food they eat, you know, and everything affects you more. Even if your mind's clear and you have less control over circumstances, and finally, no control. And getting sick, everybody's been sick. So it doesn't matter what age you are, it's miserable. You know, it's really unpleasant being sick. And finally dying, probably none of us remember if we've done it before, but seeing some people die, many times it's not very easy. You know, it's not smooth. One of our students, who's now a Zen master, told me when she was 8 years old, she went to visit her cousin, Jane McLaughlin.
Mm.
Yeah. Not her cousin, her great aunt. And her aunt was 108 years old. Mm. And her mom took her to, you know, the home the aunt was living in, and she says, she told me when she saw her, she said, Auntie, how are you doing? And her first thing her aunt said was, I've been trying to die for 20 years. So So maybe it's not so easy to die either. So that was his main concern, and of course, in most of us, our life it's been possible to be a little removed from some of those things. You don't see women giving birth, almost never, you know, and you do see people sick, but sometimes you get protected from that. I mean, when I was 10 years old, my grandfather had a heart attack. I didn't even know till I was 30. Our parents didn't take us to see him or anything. And getting old, before, even less than 100 years ago, families lived together. So you'd see your grandparents getting old, you'd see the dailiness of it. The daily things become difficult. But now, less and less, unless you live in very difficult circumstances, you know, war zones or things like that. So it's a little theoretical. Those things are kind of theoretical to us, but at Buddha's time and through most of human life, they were very real experiences that people were quite aware of and saw all the time. And that was his main concern. You know, many people in the West say, at least, who come to meditation, we want a better relationship, and we want to live happier, and we want, better career situation.
Not to be light unto ourselves.
Well, we don't think about that at all, you know. So that means we're coming from good situations, but many people in the past, and I'm sure some people now, came to it out of an awareness of the real everyday quality of sufferings that people run into. So I think that's why he emphasized those things. And also, you know, I read some of the politics in America. Luckily, I don't pay any attention to what goes on in Korea nowadays, unless it's something America's doing, because I'm happy to live in a country where I don't know what it is, you know, what's going on. And there's enough, if you read America, to make you sick. But it's so amazing how it seems huge numbers of people pay no attention to cause and effect. And also, maybe because, you know, Christianity, I don't know Judaism and Islam, but definitely Christianity only understands present and future. There's no past, really. So, for example, the fruit of what's going on in America is very simply coming primarily from racism, stealing the land from the Native Americans, and genocide. And if you don't realize that even if you were born today, if you're born in America, you're part of that. And you have a responsibility for it. And if you don't accept that and digest it, you will act from narrow, untrue points of view. I can see noble as also means like worthy of respect. Yeah. So the more you experience how full of untruth so much of society is, you see truth itself is noble. It's worthy of respect, because we don't have it much.
If we do something about it.
Well, there's no separation from the theory and the action. There never is, you know. So I just feel really grateful to run into Buddha's teaching. And it doesn't matter whether you believe in a past life or anything, but you see that the whole universe and what appears in your life is a wave of cause and effect. And if I've got it, I have to take responsibility for that, even if I don't remember doing something that brings that about. And that changes everything. But the teaching's there. It's in the Bible. You reap what you sow. So if you have hatred, you will one day get the fruit of that. I don't understand how people don't pay attention to that. So maybe that's why Buddha had to
And fine, and fine.
show it and talk about it so much.
Because the teaching is interesting. Why I ask quite this question, because the surface now these days of teaching is the future. I mean, everything will be nice. Don't worry. Just pay your taxes, keep your telephone new model, and somehow everything will be fine. But in the Christianity, like Catholic country, I'm from Catholic country, it is very clear. Don't worry about this one. You go to heaven. So there is no worry about this one. Just leave it like this. Yeah, there's a problem, but don't know wrong. Future is heaven.
If they really believed that and just were nice to each other, then no problem. But yeah, it's these things of trying to, that's the sham of the whole thing. I knew this person in America through family, and actually America is culturally the weirdest place in the world that I visit. I don't know, but it's definitely become.
Especially California.
And this guy said to me one time, he said, white people aren't the majority in America anymore. And I said, that's not true. White people are the majority. And he said, and I said, maybe in Texas or California, it's like 49% or something. And then I forget, he said, well, we're getting taken over. And I said, the Europeans came here and stole the country. So if we say this is our country, nobody can come, by natural process, it will be stolen from us. And you can see what's happening is it's happening from the inside. Then, the best thing is just share, And then he said, well, I worked hard to get this. Then I said, his name was Bobby. I said, Bobby, you're Catholic, right? He said, yeah. I said, you've been baptized? Yeah. Well, you're going to go to heaven. I mean, this is a short time, 80 years. Soon you're going to go to heaven forever. So just be nice to people. Who cares what happens while we're here? Share everything and be nice. And he's like, yeah. But it doesn't go in. His father said to me, this was when Obama was president, he said, Obama's a communist. And I said, Obama's not a communist. And he said, Obama's a socialist. And I said, yeah, this country's socialist. Socialist for banks. And he goes, yeah. But, he'll vote for the people who give all the money to the banks. So it doesn't go in. So that's why more suffering is necessary. So the same thing with climate change. We're not waking up. We could have waked up 50, 70 years ago. It was being warned, not climate change, but pollution was being warned about in the 1800s in England from all the coal. More suffering necessary. One time, excuse me a second, somebody said to Sung Sansanim, the Choge order's rotten. Then Sansanim said, more rotten necessary.
Yeah.
So it's not about other people, it's about us too. But it's like, unless the suffering gets big, people won't wake up. Sorry, but if you do wake up, okay, then maybe you don't need any more suffering.
It was interesting when you mentioned Indians. I don't know. There was actually a turning point where they started getting slaughtered and the genocide happening. And the turning point was, believe it or not, the gold rush in mid-19th century, 1840.
1849.
49 they already reached, but the guy that discovered it on his land, Mr. Sutton, 1848.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing. Only after that gold was discovered, and then they became the real obstacle and needed to be obliterated. So which means greed, right? Which is another of those lessons that are eternal and that are human. Greed. That's no racism. Greed, simple as that. They wanted to have gold.
Yeah. Well, now it's money.
And now it's oil or money or anything. Nothing changed.
Yeah. Or comfort.
Now is the numbers. Now is the numbers in the computer. This refuge in this number make you refuge in heaven.
Right.
I'm sure that you're gonna go there.
Yeah.
So now this gold even is not as important.
So anyway, now Buddha, I think, really shows the way through that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Maybe it really maybe he was quite conscious what he was doing, going into this sort of
That's it.
not Buddhist area
Total.
and kind of dying on his own with just a couple disciples.
It
And
seems
not-
like Ananda was the only one.
Yeah, not
That's what's even-
looking for all this support and care and stuff.
That's it. That kind of an amazing thing.
Kyung Hosanim also, after he gave 5 transmissions, he just disappeared and went into these villages, grew his hair long. You guys probably know Kyung Hosanim's story. And taught calligraphy to the kids and hung around with the fishermen. He didn't stay in the temples. Smart guy.
Yeah, but I wanted to mention something when you asked why did Buddha teach. There is an interesting, it seems like he had a great sense of humor, Buddha, according to whatever we have this oral tradition or something written. Because there was a student who was insisting on metaphysical issues, like is there a soul? What about the world? Is it eternal? Is it not?
Yeah.
And then the Buddha, of course, kept refusing to answer. But then at one point, this student became frustrated.
Yeah.
And he says, look, if I don't get these answers, I'm going to leave the Sangha.
Yeah, and he did.
And beautiful answer. Buddha's answer was, he said, before you leave the Sangha, let me ask you one thing. When you wanted to join the Sangha, did I promise you that I was going to teach you about the eternal soul? He says, no, you didn't. Did I promise you any of the things that you want to know now when you read? No. He said, so why do you bother me now with these questions? And then whatever what Zen Master was saying, and then basically the focus on that. Some things that we are all intimate with, suffering.
One time in America, somebody asked Sung San Sanim, an American said, I heard in Buddhism that women can't get enlightenment. Is that true? Then San Sanim said, yes, women cannot get enlightenment. Everybody was shocked. I was shocked too. Then San Sanim said, men also cannot get enlightenment. Then he said, very interesting, he said, if you have man and woman in your mind, you cannot get enlightenment.
That's it.
And Moriarty made comment out to this one. Later he asked me, sir, the monks get enlightenment? No.
What?
Monks get enlightenment.
Of course not. That's right.
Who's the monk?
Not you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
So when truth is noble, it's kind of hard for me to understand because there is not just one universal truth out there. I feel like with all of our cultural experiences and our life experiences, everybody has their own truth. So which truth is the truth?
Depends on the situation.
Can you give an example?
In America, you sound American, I don't know, but we like to... Austria.
But I live in the United States, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
So we discuss things, So even at our directors' meetings in the Zen Center, everybody make a consensus. If most of the people want to try something, we'll try it. If somebody objects strongly, then sometimes we would say, okay, let's try it for a month. And then we can all talk about it again. Usually if you try it, it becomes pretty clear in a month or two whether it's worth doing or not. And San Sanim, of course, came from the boss says what to do. So he would do that in the beginning. He needed to get us all following. But later, he'd sit down and you could explain why you thought about doing something or didn't think we should do it, and he'd listen. One time when we were building Musangsa, and I was staying down there with Myung Ansani. He's a Chinese Malaysian who studied finance in school and worked as an accountant. Then he became a monk, and he took care of our bookkeeping. Then this layman who was running the project wanted he and I to open up fake name accounts so we could run the temple money through the account and not pay taxes on the materials we bought. So we didn't want to do that. And I explained to him, first of all, that's the law now. Second, we're guests. in Korea. If we don't follow the Korean rules, why should they let us stay here? So we want to just follow whatever the law is, you know, and so forth. Then he must have called Sansanim in Seoul, because Sung Sansanim called me up and said, "You only follow this layman. You must help him. He helping us," you know, this kind of thing, you know. Then my first thought was to explain to Sung Sansanim why I didn't want to do it. Then I realized in America he would listen, but in Korea
no way.
he wouldn't listen. So I did the Korean style. I said, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." Then he was very happy and he said, "Oh, very good. Okay, you do it now. Okay, very good. Yeah, just do it." Hang up. Then we didn't do it. I simply didn't do it because I understand now Korea's truth is say yes. Do it, not do it, that's a different story. You know? And Sansanim never called us again, and the layman gave up because he was too afraid to call Sansanim a second time. So truth is dependent on the individual and the situation. So if we hold our own idea of truth, we will never understand other people's truth. So that point is not just that truth is relative according to the person, it's dependent on the situation. So if we keep what we call don't know mind, you can eventually learn everything. And you can apply what fits in the situation. For example, because I was the senior person and we'd have these meetings, I wanted to know everybody's opinion about various things. One time, one of the monks who grew up under communism, Chung Ansani, he grew up in Hungary under communism, he came to my room after a meeting and he said, "You're too democratic. You're the boss. You should just tell everybody what they have to do." Well, it turns out it's also his personal style, as we know. But in any case, I just thought, yeah, okay, fine. But I didn't listen. But then, down at Musangsa, one day I decided I want to make one of the nuns head monk for the retreat, one Bosini. Then I brought it up in the director's meeting, and I was shocked. Even some of the Western monks looked at me like, "What? You know, a nun?" So I dropped it, you know. Then 6 months later, I brought it up again, and they gave me the same look. And then I thought, okay, I'll do the other way of being a leader. And I said, "I'm the boss, I'm making her ipsum, and that's that." And so they all were like, okay. So if we just cling to our own experience, we won't even understand our parents, you know? But if we keep a don't know mind, we can see what is the truth of any situation and work with it. Which means sometimes you push and sometimes you don't. And you can, how can I say, maybe this is what Sung Sansani meant by, one time he said, Kobong Sanim, Sung Sansanim's teacher, he thinks of his teacher Mongong Sanim as a little child, and he sees the world as a coin that he's playing with in his hands. That means you can see any situation clearly and do whatever works. But if you want something, you're going to have a problem. So you're not caught, you're not stuck. Sometimes somebody would say to Sung Sansan, "Oh, I know this one guy, I remember his name too, Michael. He was Sung Sansan's very first student. He brought Jacob to see Sung Sansan."
Yeah, Michael.
Michael Constant, yeah. So this is a long, long time ago, even before I came in 1977. So he's living at the Providence Zen Center, and he decides he wants to go back to the San Francisco Zen Center, which is a Japanese Soto temple on the West Coast. That's where he had started Zen. So he told Sansanim he wanted to go back there. Then Sansanim said, "Go back there, not necessary. You're already in Zen Center." And he said, "But I want to go to that Zen Center." You know, then Sansanim said, "Zen means put it down here, put it down there, doesn't matter. Just put it down. Then you can follow any situation." No, I want to go there. Then Sansanim said, "You like, I like." He would often say that. If somebody wouldn't listen, he'd say, "You like, I like." And I later told people, If you hear that, it means bad idea. But anyway, he gave Michael the money to take a bus across the country. Halfway across the country, at some rest area, Michael got into a fight, got thrown into jail. Then he called the Providence Zen Center. Sansanim sent somebody out there to get him out of jail and bring him back. So, you know, even Sansanim knew how to work with us. If you're really forced on your way, okay, you like, I like. You know, then you're still on his side, even though you know it's going to lead to suffering. But then if the person comes back, it's okay. One time I didn't listen to Sansanim, and I was wrong. And I was really suffering for 3 months. And not only was I suffering by what I did, but I felt like, oh, I destroyed my relationship with my teacher. I asked him for some advice, he gave it to me, and I didn't listen to it. This is what I thought. So I hadn't seen him for 3 months, and I'm at Providence Zen Center, and he's there. And at the end of chanting, I said to him, "Sir, can I talk to you?" And he said, "Yeah." And we walked through the back of the Buddha hall while everybody's leaving. Then I said, "Sir, I'm really sorry, I didn't listen to you, but it was a big mistake. And now I moved back into the Zen Center, and you know, many people would say, "I told you so." But all Sansanim said is, "Oh, now you understand, so already correct, so all finished." He didn't hold whether you listened or not listened, he didn't hold that at all, you know, but he did have wisdom, and many times he could see the best way. Whether you accepted it or not, that's your business. And also, it puts the responsibility, but also the fact that this person may have their own intelligence. You know, Buddha respected human beings' intelligence so much, much more than we demonstrate that we're worthy of it. But it's the only way that it will work. You know, you have to come to have faith in your own, in yourself, but not in your opinion, in your ability to be clear, and that's another thing. Yeah. So what you say is true. You know, it's not just that truth is relative. In a sense, it's not relative. It's very specific for each situation. But you can't take it from one to the other. Most of the time, you can't. It's very interesting also. One time, one of Sansanim's students took 5 precepts, you know, the lay precepts: vow not to kill, not to lie, not to steal, not to engage in wrong actions out of lust, not to take intoxicants in order to induce heedlessness. Then we went out to lunch, and I remember the man said, "Sir, I have a teenage daughter." She said, "Today I took precepts, and I'm very happy about that, and they mean a lot to me. And one of the precepts, maybe the most important, is don't kill, don't take any life. But what if my teenage daughter comes to me and says she's pregnant, the boy ran off, and she doesn't know what to do? What can I do?" You know, it's interesting. Is something going to say, "No, you must never kill," or what's he going to say? And then he said, "You must understand your daughter's mind. Then good teaching will appear." So he didn't take either side. You have an abortion, you don't have an abortion. Just, you must understand your daughter's mind, then good teaching will appear. So, you know, the action is left wide open. If you really connect with and understand the other person, then some wisdom appears, not dependent on all these rules. Yeah, so truth is enormous.
Noble.
Enormous, yeah. So, and yet, most people, either they think it's relative in the sense of I have my truth and you have your truth, and of course that's how we get into wars actually. Or, you know, there's only one truth, and if you don't do it, we're killing you, or you're going to hell or something, you know. Both are bullshit. So, I think it's cool because what it really requires is we become clear, and clear means basically empty. And then other people's minds are reflected in our mind, and the situation becomes clear, and some wisdom will naturally appear. Now, I saw Sun Sanzini do this once, so I do it at wedding ceremonies, even in Korea. He took the rings before the wedding, people exchanged the rings, and he said, this ring is a circle. A circle's complete, but it also is zero. Zero is empty. So our original nature is empty. So when you, and then I added this part, when you have a fight, you should look at your ring and remember, originally all is empty. Then if you both put down your opinions, minds become one, then some harmony, wisdom will appear. So if we are able to realize our empty nature, then when we meet people, their mind's reflected in our mind, and the situation's clear, and many times some wisdom you could never write down and say, this is the rule, appears. And when it doesn't, only keep don't know. So I think it's, Buddha presented this path. It's not a bunch of rules. The rules are, what's it like, Pirates of the Caribbean? They're like guidelines, you know? It depends on the situation. Somebody asked Sansanim, if you're a Buddhist and you're a policeman and somebody's shooting many people, what do? Sansanim said, if you have a gun, you must stop this man. That's your job, not your opinion. If you don't want to be in that situation, don't become a policeman. So I hope we really take Buddha's teaching to heart and digest it and figure out how to apply it in our lives, not as rules, but as a way of reflecting back on ourselves and being able to see what is my opinion, what is my idea. And we do that naturally, we just don't do it very often. I was visiting my mother before she died, and my uncle kept telling me, you have to give away all the books in that room. It's too crowded with books. My mother had this den full of books, piles on the floor, and a table with all this mail on it that she looked through. And I mentioned it to her, we could take this down and donate it to the library and stuff. And she said, I had to keep bringing this up because my uncle kept pushing me about it. And then she said, well, these you give here and these you give here when the time is right, which means after she died. So one day I go in and I start to clean up her table. And she comes over. It's the only time we almost had a fight that time. And she says, don't touch my things. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry.
She was right.
She was right, of course she was right. It was my uncle's idea to clean up the room. It wasn't her idea. So that's a natural way. Oh, okay. So we do that stuff all the time, but we don't do it a lot. We hold on because I don't know. I think we don't have faith in ourselves, so we want other people to believe in my truth, my idea. I think that's why some Christians are always pushing you to believe in God, because somewhere inside they don't believe in it. If they believe in it, just be good to people. You don't need to say anything.
It's very difficult.
Or say nice things. It doesn't matter whether somebody believes it or not. Jesus didn't seem to worry about it. Buddha wasn't Buddhist and Jesus wasn't Christian, so we better be like that too. Just become clear. So, this world, nobody knows what's going to happen. In our personal life, in the social life, nobody knows. And Sun Sanzini thought a lot of bad things are going to happen this century. He didn't seem to be bothered by it, but he just said, many suffering coming. He said many fighting, many wars. When the World Trade Center went down 9/11. 9/11 was my grandmother's birthday, so usually when I think of 9/11, I think of Grandma, you know? And everybody who gets freaked out about it, at least in America, is like, what are you thinking about, you know? You're not thinking about why somebody might want to do this, or you are, but your idea is way wrong. But in any case, I was with Sung San Sinim in Hong Kong, and we were watching it on TV, and Sung San Sinim kept saying, World War III already begun, World War III already begun. So I said, what kind of war, sir? He said, this war have no front line, any place of fighting, and many, many fighting, maybe 100, 200 years. Then many people kill each other, and many place not enough water, some place too much water, and some place not enough food, and human beings, many bad action to nature. So nature make a problem for human beings. Then many, many people die, much, much suffering. Then does the human population go down, go down, go down? 1 or 2 billion, then become more smooth. Who knows? But could be. Any of it could be. Any of it or all of it. So become clear, very important. Even if the outside world is perfectly harmonized, we'll get old.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. You're a young man. You're 10 years younger than me, so, you know.
It's
Look
okay.
what you have to look forward to.
That's it.
Stomach problems and
That's
happier.
it.
Happier.
That's it.
Yeah. So, for our own benefit, how attached am I to my body? Yeah. When your body gets old, it hurts, but it doesn't mean you have to suffer. Somebody once said, pain is natural. It's not an option. Suffering is an option. You know, if you're in pain and it's like, okay, this sucks, but if you expect it or really want it to be differently, then there'll be a problem. So I always tell people now, especially Koreans, when you get old, this is just a rented car. You have to find the driver. When you die, you return the rented car to the universe, then you get a new car. So if you try to live a sincere life and learn and grow and help others, then maybe next life you get a better car. Maybe this life your car's a Chico. It's not so good looking, doesn't drive so well. But if you try to, you know, be good to other people, help other people, and become clear, then next life, maybe you get Mercedes-Benz. So even if it's just for dealing with our own piece of the world, this body, our life, it's worth really trying to digest Buddha's teaching and make it our way. And then it also will help us in our relationships with others tremendously. And that's the only thing that helps society as a whole. You know, remember Ma Ghosananda? He used to say, a peaceful heart makes a peaceful person. A peaceful person makes a peaceful family. A peaceful family makes a peaceful village. A peaceful village makes a peaceful town. A peaceful town makes a peaceful world. So it's Sosan Bogyo style teaching, Theravadan Buddhism teaching, but it all starts from our own heart, our own mind. So let's become lights to ourselves.
That's
light
right.
unto ourselves.
That's right.
And then good situation, bad situation, we can perceive something and do something that can relieve us of suffering and can help others. And yeah, Buddha going off to die, yeah, that's what animals do. Sounds kind of good to me right now.
Sounds good.
Looks good.
Nothing to worry about.
Well, we'll find out, right?
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah.